The elevator doors slide open on the 43rd floor of the Marina Crown Tower, revealing a sprawling penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows that frame Dubai's glittering skyline. Detective Saeed Al-Mansouri steps into what was once a $15 million sanctuary, now transformed into a crime scene so disturbing that even the most seasoned officers on his team avoid eye contact. In the master bedroom, partially visible through an open door, lies the body of Maria Santos, a 28-year-old Filipina flight attendant. The official cause of death will later be recorded as asphyxiation, but that clinical term fails to capture the violence of her final moments. On the nightstand, Maria's phone sits untouched, a final message draft still visible on the screen. "I can't live like this anymore." But is it a suicide note or something the killer wanted police to believe? This is the story of Maria Santos and Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed Al Maktoum, a tale of power, desperation, and the deadly consequences when love and extortion collide. But to understand what happened that night in April 2023, we need to go back, way back, to Cebu City, Philippines, 2002. Picture a small concrete home in Barangay Guadalupe, where the smell of adobo cooking mingles with the exhaust fumes from passing jeepneys. 9-year-old Maria Santos sits cross-legged on a thin mattress, carefully tracing English words in a worn notebook while her 3-year-old brother Elijah naps beside her. This humble 2-room structure houses 6 people: Maria, her father Eduardo, her grandmother Lola Conchita, and 3 siblings. The cramped quarters feel even smaller today because Maria's mother, Lourdes, isn't there to organize the chaos. Yesterday, Lourdes boarded a plane to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, becoming one of the millions of overseas Filipino workers, OFWs, who leave their families behind to work as domestic helpers abroad. "When will Mama come home?" Maria asks her father as he prepares simple pancit noodles for dinner. 2 years, Eduardo replies, the weight of 730 days of single parenthood heavy in his voice. "But she'll send money every month so you can go to a better school." That night, Maria adds an entry to her Hello Kitty diary. "Mama left today. Papa says she's a hero. If being a hero means leaving your family, I don't want to be one." Eduardo Santos is a good man caught in economic circumstances beyond his control. He trained as an architectural draftsman, but the Asian financial crisis collapsed the construction industry in Cebu. Now he takes whatever day labor he can find, his hands growing calloused and his dreams of designing buildings fading with each concrete block he carries. "Your mother and I had plans," he tells Maria one evening. "We were going to build a small resort on Mactan Island. Just 10 rooms, nothing fancy. Tourists would come for diving, and we'd serve your Lola's cooking." Maria listens, picturing this alternate reality where her parents work together instead of across oceans from each other. That night, she adds, "I will build Papa's resort someday. Promise." The family's small living room is dominated by a shrine-like display centered around a framed photograph of Lourdes in her Saudi uniform. Each evening, the family gathers to pray the rosary, asking for Lourdes' safety and health. In 2010, when Maria is 17, Lourdes returns from Saudi Arabia for a 3-month visit. The woman who steps off the plane bears little resemblance to the mother who left. 8 years of caring for another family's children has aged her beyond her 42 years. During this visit, Lourdes arranges a family trip to her home village in Bohol province. They stay with relatives in a house that makes their Cebu home look luxurious by comparison. No running water, intermittent electricity, and a dirt floor in the kitchen. "This is where I grew up," Lourdes tells Maria. "When I was your age, I studied by kerosene lamp because we couldn't afford electricity." Standing in the landscape of her mother's childhood, Maria finally understands the full measure of Lourdes' journey. Not just the physical distance from Bohol to Saudi Arabia, but the socio-economic distance from rural poverty to being able to provide for an extended family. "I never wanted to leave you," Lourdes confesses one night, "but sometimes you have to leave the people you love to give them the life they deserve." This phrase lodges itself in Maria's consciousness, becoming a mantra that will guide and haunt her in equal measure throughout her life. "I'm going to become a flight attendant," Maria announces to her father on her 18th birthday in 2013. "I'll see the world and send money home, but unlike Mama, I won't have to stay away for years at a time. Eduardo studies his daughter's face. Airlines prefer tall girls, he says gently. Maria stands only 5 feet 2 inches, below the height requirements for most international carriers. Then I'll wear higher heels, she replies with unwavering confidence. College isn't easy. Though her mother's remittances cover tuition, Maria takes a part-time job at SM City Cebu, a sprawling shopping mall. Her shifts run from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. after classes, leaving just enough time to catch the last jeepney home. Weekends are spent taking additional English proficiency courses and attending workshops on makeup application and professional etiquette. All investments in her flight attendant dream. Her first rejection comes in 2015 from Philippine Airlines. The rejection letter offers no explanation, but a friend whispers that her English accent wasn't neutral enough. It carried too much of the sing-song Cebuano inflection. Undeterred, Maria spends 3 months watching American television shows with subtitles, mimicking the actor's pronunciation. She practices in front of a cracked mirror, repeating phrases like, "Would you care for a beverage?" until her throat is sore. By her final year of university, Maria's family faces a new challenge. Lourdes has developed severe arthritis from years of housekeeping work. Her contract in Saudi Arabia isn't renewed, forcing her return to Cebu without the steady income they've come to depend on. Maybe I should just apply for domestic helper positions like Mama did, Maria tells her best friend Jasmine one afternoon. No, Jasmine replies firmly. You've worked too hard. One more try. In early 2017, Emirates Airlines announces a recruitment drive in Manila. Maria scrapes together money for the inter-island ferry and bus fare to attend the open call. The Emirates recruiters process nearly 1,000 applicants over 2 days. When asked about her height, she responds with practiced confidence. I may not be the tallest candidate, but I can reach any overhead compartment, and more importantly, I can reach people with warmth and professionalism. To her shock, she advances to the final round. When the selection email arrives 2 weeks later, Maria stares at her phone screen in disbelief before running through their small home, shouting the news. Emirates! I got Emirates! She cries, waving her phone like a winning lottery ticket. In many ways, she has won the lottery. The starting salary exceeds what most college-educated Filipinos earn after years of experience. The family celebrates as if it's fiesta season. Neighbors crowd into their small home with advice, congratulations, and cautionary tales about life in the Middle East. Lourdes sits quietly in the corner, tears streaming down her face. I cleaned houses so you wouldn't have to, she whispers. You'll serve people too, but in the sky wearing a beautiful uniform. That's progress. Maria's first glimpse of Dubai comes through an airplane window, a futuristic skyline emerging from the desert like a mirage, dominated by the impossible needle of the Burj Khalifa piercing the hazy sky. Emirates provides 2 weeks of intensive training, covering everything from emergency protocols to makeup application and cultural sensitivity. Maria shares a training dormitory with 3 other new hires from Sweden, India, and Morocco. You Filipinas have a reputation to maintain, her trainer tells the 4 Filipino women in her cohort. Emirates loves hiring from the Philippines because you're hardworking, your English is good, and you understand service. This reputation is a double-edged sword. It opens doors but comes with heightened expectations and subtle prejudices. Maria quickly learns that Dubai operates on a complex social hierarchy where nationality often determines status. After training, Maria moves into company accommodation in Al Qusais, a plain but comfortable apartment she shares with 3 other flight attendants. Her roommates become her first support system. Divya from Mumbai, Sophie from Manchester, and Chen from Taipei. Maria's first paycheck feels like a fortune. She immediately establishes a routine, 40% to her family in Cebu, 40% to savings, and 20% for her Dubai expenses. The money she wires home allows Paolo to take a professional certification course, covers Elijah's college application fees, and funds repairs to their home's leaking roof. Her inaugural flight assignment is Dubai to Bangkok. As she wheels the beverage cart down the aisle of the Boeing 777, Maria feels an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. In those early months, Maria's life follows the disorienting rhythm of international aviation, waking up in Dubai on Monday, sleeping in Sydney on Tuesday, serving breakfast over the Indian Ocean on Wednesday. Despite the physical challenges, Maria thrives professionally. Her evaluations consistently mention her natural warmth and exceptional attention to detail. Within 6 months, she's assigned to longer routes and promoted to working business class. Back in the Philippines, Maria's transformation is tracked through carefully curated social media posts. Her Instagram account now features Maria in uniform in front of the Eiffel Tower, sampling street food in Bangkok, watching snow fall for the first time in Moscow. Living the dream. #blessed, #flight attendant life, #travel the world. Reads the caption under a photo of her sipping coffee at a cafe in Milan. What the image doesn't show is the 20-minute break in a 14-hour workday, her swollen ankles, or how she saved for weeks to afford that single cup of coffee. As she approaches her 1-year anniversary with Emirates, Maria receives news that she's being transferred to the airline's prestigious ultra-long-haul routes, including first-class service. At a celebration dinner with her roommates, Maria allows herself a rare moment of pride. "I never thought I'd make it this far. Just be careful in first class," Sophie warns. "That's where the princes and CEOs fly. Different rules up there." Maria laughs off the warning. "I've handled drunk businessmen in economy. How much harder could it be?" What Maria doesn't tell her family is how exhausted she feels. The constant jet lag, the emotional labor of smiling through difficult interactions, the homesickness that strikes unexpectedly. Nor does she mention the advice circulating among Filipino flight attendants. If an Emirati man with a certain surname asks for your number, smile, say no politely, and find an excuse to move along. That advice, like so many warnings in a young woman's life, will prove insufficient against the complex reality awaiting her. Because on a first-class flight to London in late 2019, Maria Santos will meet Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed Al Maktoum. And nothing in her training has prepared her for the choices she'll have to make when true power focuses its attention on her. If you're finding this story compelling, consider subscribing to see how Maria's journey continues. What happens when someone raised in poverty suddenly has access to unimaginable luxury? How do our early understandings of love and sacrifice shape the decisions we make as adults? And what lines would you cross to keep a dream alive once you've tasted it? Flight EK31, Dubai to London Heathrow, November 2019. First-class cabin. Maria Santos adjusts her burgundy Emirates uniform, practicing the names of the 8 passengers in her section: oil executives, a British diplomat, and 3 members of the UAE elite. The manifest notes one name with the honorific Sheikh, triggering a memory of her roommate's warning about certain surnames. "Remember," the purser whispers as they prepare the cabin. "Extra attention to seats 2A and 2K. Royal family members. Perfect service only." Maria nods, her training kicking in. She's been in first class for 3 months now, learning the invisible choreography of luxury service. How to be present without being noticed, attentive without being intrusive. Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed Al Maktoum boards last, escorted personally by the cabin service manager. Maria's first impression is not what she expected. At 34, he lacks the imperious air or paunch common to many wealthy Emirati men. Instead, he's tall and fit, with intelligent eyes and an understated elegance to his traditional white kandura. Unlike other VIPs who ignore cabin crew, he acknowledges each greeting with a slight nod. "Welcome aboard, Your Excellency," Maria says, the honorific practice to perfection. He glances up, actually seeing her rather than through her. "Thank you. Your name?" "Maria, sir. I'll be taking care of you today." Something shifts in his expression. Perhaps surprise at her direct eye contact or the faint Cebuano accent beneath her polished English. Whatever it is, it makes him actually look at her beyond the uniform. 2 hours into the 7-hour flight, after the dinner service, Sheikh Khalid presses his call button. Maria responds immediately. "I'd like some karak tea," he requests. "The traditional kind with cardamom and saffron." Maria's face falls slightly. "I'm very sorry, Your Excellency. We have several premium teas, but not karak." She braces for displeasure. First-class passengers expect their every whim fulfilled. Instead, he laughs softly. Of course not. I'm being ridiculous. Regular black tea is fine. When she returns with the tea, he surprises her again. Have you been to London before? Several times for work, Your Excellency. But only airport and hotel. The best tea in London is at a small place called Fortnum and Mason. Perhaps you'll get to try it someday. The conversation should end there, the invisible barrier between service staff and royalty reasserting itself. But when Maria passes by his seat an hour later, he asks about the Philippines, mentioning a development project his family's company is considering in Palawan. The questions are specific, intelligent. Not the vague pleasantries VIPs sometimes offer to appear worldly. As the cabin lights dim and other passengers sleep, Khalid and Maria's conversation continues in brief, intermittent moments. She learns he was educated at London School of Economics, that he manages a division of his family's vast investment portfolio, that unlike his more prominent cousins, he prefers to avoid social media and paparazzi. Before landing, he hands her a business card. If you have time tomorrow, perhaps you could join me at Fortnum and Mason. I'll show you what proper tea should taste like. Maria's training flashes warning signals. Emirates has strict rules about fraternizing with passengers. Dating anyone connected to Dubai's ruling family could jeopardize more than her job. The UAE's cultural and legal landscape makes such relationships potentially dangerous for foreign women. I'm not sure that would be appropriate, Your Excellency. Just tea, he says. In a public place. Completely professional. You can even bring a colleague if that makes you more comfortable. Before disembarking, he adds, I'll be at Fortnum's at 3 p.m. tomorrow. If you come, wonderful. If not, I completely understand. In her London Crew hotel, Maria's roommate Divya is horrified. Are you insane? These men don't date girls like us. We're entertainment to them, not partners. It's just tea. Maria echoes his words, already knowing she'll go. Fortnum and Mason's elegant tea room feels like entering another era. Maria arrives 15 minutes late, having changed outfits 3 times in her hotel room. She wears a modest knee-length dress and carries her only luxury item, a small coach bag purchased from an outlet store in America. Khalid rises when she approaches, dressed in a perfectly tailored Western suit rather than traditional dress. No security visible, though Maria suspects they're somewhere nearby. He orders without consulting the menu, a full afternoon tea service with specialized blends. I worried you wouldn't come, he says. I almost didn't, she admits. The conversation flows with surprising ease. He asks about her family, her career ambitions, her impressions of Dubai. She finds herself sharing the story of her mother's years as an OFW, her father's abandoned resort dream. He listens with actual interest, asking questions that suggest he's truly engaged rather than merely polite. You're not what I expected, she finally says. Because I'm royal? Or because I'm Emirati? Both, I suppose. He leans forward slightly. May I tell you something, Maria? I spend my life surrounded by people who want something from me. My position, my connections, my family's money. You're the first person in months who's been genuine, who looked at me like a person rather than a title. It's a line, perhaps, but delivered with such sincerity that it pierces something in her. As they leave the tea room, he makes no presumptuous suggestions about continuing the evening. Instead, he asks, when do you return to Dubai? Tomorrow. Flight EK32. Then perhaps we might see each other there, if you're willing. Back in Dubai, Maria expects nothing. Men make promises in foreign cities they conveniently forget upon returning home. Yet 3 days later, a message arrives on her phone from an unlisted number. Dinner tomorrow? I know a private place where we won't be seen. Thus begins what Maria will later describe to her best friend Jasmine as living in a parallel universe. By day, she continues her Emirates duties, serving passengers and navigating crew politics. By night, on her off days, she enters Khalid's world. Their first dinner is at a secluded villa on Palm Jumeirah. A private chef preparing dishes Maria has never heard of, servants who materialize and disappear without being summoned. Khalid is different here, more relaxed yet also more careful. He explains the protocol. A driver will always collect her, routes and timing varied. She should tell no one who she's seeing. If asked, she's consulting on a business project. Is this how all your relationships work? She asks. His expression darkens slightly. There haven't been many. And yes, discretion is essential. My family has expectations. Being seen with a non-Emirati woman would create complications. The unspoken hierarchies hang between them: nationality, religion, class. Maria understands her position in this equation, but the chemistry between them feels real enough to temporarily suspend judgment. Their relationship intensifies over the following months. Khalid arranges his schedule around her flight rotations. When she's in Dubai, they meet at private residences or on his yacht, never in public. When she has layovers in cities like London or Paris, he sometimes appears unexpectedly, having flown his private jet just to spend hours with her. The physical relationship evolves gradually. Khalid is surprisingly traditional despite his Western education, respectful of boundaries until Maria herself crosses them. Their first night together comes after 2 months, in a suite at Claridge's in London that costs more per night than Maria's monthly salary. Afterward, as they lie in sheets that probably cost more than her father earned in a year, Khalid traces patterns on her skin. You're extraordinary, Maria Santos. Do you know that? I'm just a flight attendant from Cebu. No. You crossed oceans, built a life on your own terms. You're fearless. She doesn't feel fearless. She feels intoxicated by him, by the lifestyle, by the dangerous thrill of being somewhere she doesn't belong. The gifts begin subtly. A designer scarf that matched your eyes. A gold bracelet I saw in the souk. Then bigger items, the latest iPhone, a Chanel handbag. Maria initially resists, conscious of the transactional appearance, but Khalid frames each gift as a natural expression of affection rather than payment. My family has more money than we could spend in 10 lifetimes, he says when she protests. Letting me share it with you isn't taking advantage. It's making me happy. 6 months into their relationship, Maria realizes she's fallen in love, not with the luxury or the gifts, but with the man who reads poetry to her, who remembers every story she tells about her siblings, who sometimes seems as lonely in his privileged world as she feels in her transient one. The illusion of normalcy sometimes overwhelms reality. They cook simple meals in his private kitchen. They watch films curled together on sofas. They argue about politics and laugh about cultural misunderstandings. In those moments, the vast gulfs between them, wealth, nationality, religion, status, seem to disappear, but reality always returns. When Khalid must attend a family wedding, he goes alone. When Maria mentions meeting his friends, his expression closes. When she once suggests visiting the Philippines together, he gently explains why that's impossible. My movements are tracked. Questions would be asked. The pattern becomes clear. They exist in a parallel universe, one with invisible walls that protect their relationship but also confine it. After their first anniversary, Khalid presents Maria with a key. I've bought an apartment. For you. For us. The property is the 43rd floor penthouse in Marina Crown Tower, a multi-million-dollar residence with panoramic views of the Palm and the Arabian Gulf. Maria stands speechless in the vast living room, trying to reconcile this space with her family's 2-room home in Cebu. I can't accept this, she whispers. You're not accepting it. You're sharing it with me. I need somewhere we can be together that isn't owned by my family. Somewhere that feels like ours. The decision to leave Emirates company housing for the penthouse marks Maria's crossing of a significant line. To her roommates and colleagues, she explains that she's moving in with friends from the Filipino community to save money. Only Divya, her closest confidant, knows partial truth, that Maria is seeing someone wealthy and connected. Be careful, Divya warns. I've seen these arrangements before. They never end well for the woman. It's not an arrangement, Maria insists. We're in a relationship. The move transforms Maria's daily existence. She continues flying with Emirates, maintaining the appearance of a normal flight attendant's life. But she returns to marble floors, a personal housekeeper, a closet slowly filling with designer clothes, and a safe containing jewelry worth more than her parents' house. Her remittances home increase substantially. When her brother Paolo needs seed money for a tech startup, Maria sends it without explanation. When Elijah requires emergency dental surgery, the funds appear immediately. When her parents' roof finally collapses after years of patching, Maria pays for a complete home renovation. "How are you affording all this on a flight attendant's salary?" her father eventually asks during a video call. "I'm doing some consulting work," Maria lies, the explanation Khalid suggested. "For a hospitality group. It pays very well." The family accepts this explanation because they want to believe it. Only Lourdes, who spent years navigating the complex relationship between foreign workers and wealthy employers, seems suspicious. "Be honest with me, Anik," she says during a rare private call. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" "No, Mama. Promise. I've just found opportunities here." As Maria's second year with Khalid begins, she finds herself increasingly isolated from her former life. Filipino community gatherings happen on weekends when she's now often with Khalid. Church attendance becomes sporadic. Old friends from Emirates stop inviting her out, assuming she'll decline as she usually does. Meanwhile, her material reality has transformed beyond recognition. The simple girl who once saved for weeks to buy coffee in Milan now casually carries handbags worth thousands of dollars. The daughter who once slept on a thin mattress shared with siblings now bathes in a tub with gold fixtures. Most significantly, the financial burden of her entire family now rests on her shoulders. Her parents have retired, relying on her support. Paolo's business shows promise but requires continued investment. Elijah has started university with Maria paying all expenses. The unspoken family dream, that resort on Mactan Island, has evolved from fantasy to potential reality with Maria's unexplained wealth. In quiet moments, Maria stares at her reflection in the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows, the lights of Dubai glittering below. She's achieved a version of the Filipino dream beyond what most OFWs could imagine. But the foundation of this dream rests entirely on Khalid, a relationship that exists in shadows, built on a future he's never quite promised. "We should open that resort my father always wanted," she tells Khalid one evening as they watch the sunset from their terrace. "Something small but beautiful on Mactan Island. I've been saving enough to make it possible." Khalid kisses her forehead, neither encouraging nor discouraging the dream. "You could do anything you set your mind to, Maria." The careful phrasing, "you, not we," isn't lost on her. After nearly 2 years together, certain topics remain unaddressed. Marriage, children, public acknowledgement. Maria has stopped asking these questions, afraid of answers that might shatter the beautiful unreality they've constructed. What she doesn't yet understand is that even golden cages remain cages. And when the door eventually closes, the trapped bird must decide whether comfort justifies captivity. If this story resonates with you, subscribe to see what happens next. How far would you go to protect a relationship that's transformed your life? What would you risk to keep your family's dreams alive? And what happens when cultural expectations and personal desire collide with devastating consequences? May 2022. Maria stands on the balcony of the Marina Crown Tower penthouse, watching Dubai shimmer in the evening heat. Behind her, Khalid speaks tensely into his phone, his voice low but agitated. Though he converses in Arabic, Maria has learned enough to catch phrases: family obligations, appropriate match, bloodlines. The call ends abruptly, and Khalid joins her, his face composed into careful neutrality. "Everything all right?" she asks, already knowing the answer. "Family business," he replies, the standard response that signals the conversation is closed. But tonight, perhaps sensing her growing frustration with these boundaries, he adds, "My uncle is pushing the marriage issue again." The marriage issue has been hovering at the edges of their relationship for months. Khalid, at 36, has reached the age where his extended family finds his bachelor status problematic. In their world, marriage isn't simply a personal choice but a strategic alliance, strengthening business relationships, consolidating wealth, ensuring pure bloodlines continue. Who is she? Maria asks, her voice steady despite the hollow feeling spreading through her chest. Amina, my second cousin. Her father controls the family's European investments. He shrugs, as if discussing a business merger rather than a life partnership. It's been discussed since we were children. Maria turns back to the view, fighting to keep her expression neutral. And what did you tell your uncle? What I always tell him, that I'm focused on my projects right now. That marriage can wait. The relief this brings is temporary. They both know wait doesn't mean never. By mid-2022, subtle shifts in their relationship have become impossible to ignore. Khalid's visits grow less frequent. The previously sacred weekends they spent coconed in their penthouse are increasingly interrupted by unavoidable family obligations. When they are together, his phone buzzes constantly. Business, he says. Always business. Maria notices other changes too. Khalid's generosity remains. The financial support, the gifts, the comfortable lifestyle, but something essential has withdrawn. The man who once spent hours discussing her dreams, who remembered every detail about her siblings, who seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts, has been replaced by someone physically present but emotionally distant. You seem somewhere else lately, she finally says one night, after another dinner spent watching him check his phone. I'm sorry. Work pressure, he replies automatically. It's been work pressure for months now. Maria's voice rises slightly. Is it the marriage thing? Is your family increasing the pressure? Khalid's expression hardens. My family situation is complicated. You know this. Of course I know. I've accepted being your secret for nearly 3 years. It's their first real argument, the careful balance of their relationship finally buckling under the weight of unspoken realities. Maria says things she's suppressed for years. About the humiliation of hiding, about her loneliness, about her uncertainty regarding their future. Khalid listens silently, his face revealing little. What exactly do you want from me, Maria? He finally asks. The question lands like a physical blow. What does she want? Acknowledgement? Marriage? The impossible fantasy that he would choose her over family obligations, cultural expectations, and centuries of tradition. I want to know if I'm waiting for something real or just convenient company until your real life begins, she answers. He takes her hands, his voice softening. What we have is real. But my position comes with obligations I can't simply ignore. I've pushed back against my family's expectations for years because of what we share. Isn't that proof enough? The conversation ends with neither resolution nor breakup, just the uncomfortable recognition that their relationship exists in a liminal space that cannot be sustained indefinitely. At Emirates, Maria's increasingly luxurious lifestyle hasn't gone unnoticed. Though she's careful not to flaunt her designer accessories or mention her penthouse, flight attendants are observant by nature. The whispers follow her through crew briefings and layover hotels. She's someone's mistress. She overhears in the crew rest area during a flight to Sydney. Has to be. No one goes from Forever 21 to Fendi without help. The Filipino community in Dubai, always attuned to shifts in status, has begun to distance themselves. Church friends no longer invite her to gatherings. Former roommates view her with a mixture of envy and judgment. Maria tells herself it doesn't matter, that they're simply jealous, but the isolation weighs on her. Even her relationship with family has become strained by unasked questions. When visiting Cebu during a rare vacation, Maria notices how her mother watches her unpacked designer clothes, how her father seems uncomfortable in the renovated home she's paid for, how childhood friends treat her with a deference that feels like distance. Where does all this money really come from, Anak? Lourdes finally asks directly. I told you, consulting work, investments. Maria replies, the lie practiced to perfection. Lourdes, who spent decades navigating the power dynamics between wealthy employers and vulnerable OFWs, simply says, be careful. Nothing in this world comes without a price. As 2022 draws to a close, Maria's dependence on Khalid has become total. Her Emirates salary, once her pride and independence, now covers barely a tenth of her lifestyle. Her family has grown accustomed to her generous support, Paulo's business struggles, requiring regular cash infusions. Elijah's university tuition and apartment in Manila, her parents' medical bills and comfortable retirement. The dream resort on Mactan remains theoretical, but she's begun researching properties, sensing that she needs something of her own before it's too late. Meanwhile, Khalid's absences grow longer. Where he once arranged his schedule around hers, now weeks pass with only brief visits and apologetic gifts. The emotional withdrawal is impossible to ignore, but Maria clings to the moments when the old connection resurfaces. A thoughtful conversation, a tender night, a shared joke that reminds her of why she fell in love. Then, in December 2022, she discovers the truth by accident. During a layover in London, Maria sees a notification on her phone. Check out at Dubai_Royal_News on Instagram. From a former colleague. Curious, she opens the account to find photographs from a private family gathering. There's Khalid, arm around the shoulders of a beautiful Emirati woman in traditional dress. The caption reads, Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed Al Maktoum and cousin Amina Al Maktoum looking cozy at family gathering. Wedding bells soon. When confronted, Khalid doesn't deny it. Nothing is official, he says. These rumors always circulate. But something has shifted. The careful compartmentalization that allowed their relationship to continue has been breached. Reality has intruded on fantasy. January 2023 arrives with an unseasonable chill in Dubai. The penthouse feels emptier than ever, with Khalid's visits now reduced to occasional overnights. Maria's Emirates schedule has become busier. Additional flights requested to fill empty hours, to feel useful, to escape the beautiful cage that increasingly feels like a waiting room for abandonment. The idea comes to her during a particularly lonely night, scrolling through her phone's photo gallery. There are hundreds of pictures of her and Khalid, holidays, intimate moments, evidence of a relationship he's never publicly acknowledged. She pauses on a video from last year's trip to Maldives, where they'd rented a private island villa. Khalid looks directly into the camera, saying, "To many more years together, my love." Maria stares at the frozen image, a plan forming. If Khalid marries his cousin while maintaining their relationship, as powerful men have done throughout history, what leverage would Maria have? What security? What happens when she's no longer young enough or interesting enough to be worth the complication? The next time Khalid visits, Maria places her phone strategically. The video recording captures their intimate conversation, his promises that nothing will really change, his assurances that he cares for her despite family pressures. Over the following weeks, she accumulates more videos, text message screenshots, photos of gifts with handwritten notes, recordings of calls where he discusses his family's business dealings. The self-justification comes easily. This isn't blackmail, it's insurance. Not extortion, but protection. She isn't planning to use any of it, merely creating a safety net in case she's discarded after giving years of her life to a relationship with no future. Her only confidant is Jasmine, her childhood friend from Cebu, now working in Singapore. During a video call, Maria reveals what she's been doing. "Are you insane?" Jasmine's horrified face fills the screen. "These aren't normal people you're dealing with. They have actual power. Not rich people power, government power." "I'm not going to use any of it," Maria insists. "It's just security." What kind of security involves making an enemy of someone connected to the ruling family? The videos alone could get you jail time in the UAE. You know their laws about privacy and reputation. Jasmine's warnings gnaw at Maria, but not enough to stop her. She creates a secure cloud storage account, uploading encrypted files of all her evidence. She shares access credentials with Jasmine with instructions. "If anything happens to me, these need to reach the international press." "This isn't a movie," Jasmine pleads. "This is your life. If you're unhappy, just leave. Come to Singapore. Stay with me until you figure things out." But leaving means abandoning the financial stability her family now depends on. It means admitting failure, returning to a normal life that now feels impossibly constrained after years of luxury. It means losing Khalid, whom, despite everything, she still loves. Instead, Maria refines her technical approach, researching encryption methods and secure storage. She hides an additional phone in the apartment, set to automatically back up new recordings. She disguises the nature of her files with innocent-sounding names and folders. Each step feels both shameful and necessary. The actions of a woman trying to secure some power in a fundamentally unequal relationship. What Maria doesn't fully grasp is how drastically she's changing the nature of their relationship. What began as a love affair, however complicated by power differentials, is transforming into something darker. A transaction with implied threats on both sides. She's crossing a line that cannot be uncrossed, fundamentally altering both their roles. March 2023. Maria returns from a Hong Kong flight to find Khalid waiting in the penthouse. A rare weekday visit. Something in his posture, formal, distant, resolved, tells her before he speaks. "I need to talk to you about something important," he begins. The news is delivered with practiced calm. His engagement to Amina will be announced next week. The wedding is scheduled for September. His family expects him to begin living a more public, appropriate life befitting his position. "What does this mean for us?" Maria asks, though she already knows. Khalid has prepared for this conversation. He outlines what he calls a parting arrangement, a lump sum payment of 1 million dirhams, approximately $272,000. She can keep most of the gifts he's given her. The penthouse, however, will be sold once she finds new accommodation. He'll help her secure a nice apartment elsewhere in Dubai if she wishes to stay. The condition: complete discretion. A non-disclosure agreement preventing her from ever discussing their relationship. A clean, quiet separation with appropriate compensation for her time. As he speaks, Maria feels a strange detachment, as if watching the scene from above. 3 years of her life, of love and sacrifice and compromise, reduced to a severance package. 1 million dirhams sounds substantial until she calculates. Divided over 3 years, it's less than Khalid spends on a single weekend trip to Europe. It's a fraction of the penthouse's value. It's what her family would need for perhaps 5 years before requiring more. "And if I don't agree to these terms?" she asks, her voice steady despite the panic rising within her. Khalid looks genuinely confused. "This is a generous offer, Maria. More than fair." "Is it? You're marrying someone else after promising me for years that I was special. That what we had was real." "It was real," he insists. "But we always knew the reality of my position." "My family." "Your family," Maria interrupts. "Always your family. What about mine? I've built their lives around what you've provided. My brother's business, my parents' retirement, my sister's education. What happens to them when your generosity ends?" Khalid's expression hardens slightly. "That's not my responsibility." The words land like a slap. Maria makes her decision in that moment. A decision born of desperation, betrayal, and the sudden, terrible understanding that she has always been temporary in his life. "I have videos," she says quietly, "of us, together, talking about your family, your business dealings. Things that would embarrass you if they became public." Khalid goes very still, his expression unreadable. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying 1 million dirhams isn't adequate compensation for 3 years and a broken heart." Maria's heart pounds so loudly she's certain he can hear it. "I'm not asking for anything I don't deserve. I supported you, loved you, kept your secrets. Now you want to throw me away with what amounts to 3 months of your allowance." The silence that follows feels endless. Khalid's face undergoes a transformation, shock, then anger, then a careful blankness that frightens her more than rage would have. "This isn't you," he finally says. "This isn't the Maria I know. The Maria you know was a fantasy, just like the future you hinted at but never intended to provide." His initial response, surprisingly, is conciliatory. The offer increases to 3 million dirhams. He needs time to arrange it properly. Would she consider meeting in 1 week to finalize everything? Maria, perhaps emboldened by what she perceives as leverage or perhaps driven by genuine heartbreak, pushes further. She wants 5 million. She wants ongoing support for her family's businesses. She wants something more than being discarded. "I need to think," Khalid says, rising to leave. His composure is perfect, betrayed only by a slight tremor in his hands. "We'll talk again. Soon." After he's gone, Maria collapses onto the sofa, the full magnitude of what she's done washing over her. She's threatened a member of Dubai's ruling family, crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed, transformed a relationship into a negotiation at best, extortion at worst. She calls Jasmine immediately. I told him about the videos. I asked for more money. Jasmine's silence speaks volumes. Say something, Maria pleads. Pack a bag, Jasmine finally responds. Get on a plane tonight. Come to Singapore. Now. I can't just leave. My family depends on. Your family needs you alive and free more than they need money. Jasmine interrupts. This isn't a game you can win. But Maria, trapped in the golden cage of her own construction, cannot see a way out that doesn't involve complete surrender and devastation. She's gone too far to retreat, too deep to escape. The final meeting is scheduled, April 15, 2023, at the penthouse. One last conversation to determine her future. What she doesn't yet understand is that Khalid, the man she thought she knew, has also made a decision. And his solution to their problem is very different from what she imagines. If you're disturbed by this story's dark turn, consider how power imbalances shape our choices. What would you do if everything you'd built for yourself and your family was suddenly threatened? At what point does survival justify crossing moral lines? And what happens when someone raised with absolute privilege confronts the first real challenge to their control? April 15, 2023, 9 p.m. The Marina Crown Tower stands illuminated against Dubai's night skyline, its curved silhouette reflected in the dark waters below. In the penthouse on the 43rd floor, Maria Santos paces nervously, checking her appearance in the mirror one final time. She wears a simple black dress, expensive but understated, a gift from Khalid during happier times. Her hair is pulled back, her makeup minimal. This is not a night for seduction but for negotiation. The security desk calls to announce Sheikh Khalid's arrival. Maria authorizes his entrance, her heart pounding against her ribs. For 3 years, his visits brought excitement, then comfort, then anxiety. Tonight, they bring only dread mixed with desperate determination. The building's security cameras capture Khalid stepping into the private elevator at 9:17 p.m. He wears a Western suit rather than traditional dress, calculated casualness for anonymity. In his right hand, he carries a slim leather briefcase. His face, turned slightly from the camera, reveals nothing of his intentions. The elevator doors slide open directly into the penthouse foyer. Khalid enters with practiced confidence, the ease of a man returning to a space he considers partially his. Camera footage, later recovered from the building's security system, shows no security personnel accompanying him. Whatever happens tonight, he has chosen to handle it alone. You look beautiful, he says, the greeting automatic as he sets the briefcase on the marble-topped entry table. 3 years of intimacy have created habits that survive even in moments of crisis. Thank you for coming, Maria replies, her voice steady despite her anxiety. She leads him into the spacious living room where floor-to-ceiling windows frame the glittering city below. Would you like something to drink? No. His tone is polite but clipped. The pleasantries of their previous life together have been stripped away, leaving only the transaction at hand. I think we should get straight to business. Khalid opens the briefcase on the glass coffee table. Inside lie neatly stacked bundles of 1,000 dirham notes. The first installment of what they both know is essentially a severance package. 1 million now, he explains, his voice neutral. The remaining 2 million will be transferred to an offshore account we'll establish for you. My lawyer has prepared the paperwork, including the non-disclosure agreement. Maria stares at the cash. Physical proof that their relationship has been reduced to a financial settlement. 3 years of whispered promises and shared dreams quantified in currency. You think 3 million is adequate? She states rather than asks. It's more than generous. Something in his tone has hardened. The man sitting across from her is no longer the lover who recited poetry in bed or remembered her siblings' birthdays. He is Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed Al Maktoum, addressing a problem that requires resolution. I've made calculations, Maria says, reaching for a folder on the side table. Inside are printouts, projections of her family's financial needs, The cost of opening the resort her father dreamed of, the ongoing expenses of her siblings' education and parents' healthcare. $3 million would last approximately 5 years at current rates. After that, my family returns to poverty. Khalid doesn't touch the folder. Your family's long-term financial planning is not my responsibility. I've already increased my initial offer threefold. Because I have leverage. The words come out more boldly than Maria feels. Yes, your insurance policy. His expression remains carefully controlled, but his eyes have darkened. Show me exactly what you have. This is the moment where multiple futures still exist, where alternate timelines branch from a single decision. In one reality, Maria might recognize the danger in his too calm demeanor. She might maintain ambiguity about her evidence, conclude the negotiation quickly, and walk away with the offered settlement. In that reality, she might be alive tomorrow. Instead, Maria makes a fatal miscalculation. Interpreting his request as continued negotiation rather than intelligence gathering, she reaches for her phone. I have videos of us together, she says, opening her gallery. Discussions about your family's business dealings, your opinions on certain royal family members, intimate moments between us. And I have messages where you made promises about our future. She shows him a sample. A video from last year where he drunkenly complained about his uncle's mismanagement of family investments. Another where he mentioned a controversial development project in Oman that hasn't been publicly announced. These would be embarrassing for your family if they became public. She continues, gaining confidence from his silence. Especially with your engagement announcement coming. How many copies do you have? Khalid asks, his voice perfectly controlled. Several. And backups. Here comes Maria's fatal mistake. The one Detective Saeed will later identify as the turning point. I've uploaded everything to secure cloud storage. And I've shared access with a friend. If anything happens to me, everything goes public. Something shifts in Khalid's expression. A microscopic change that Maria, focused on her negotiating position, fails to register. The calculation happening behind his eyes has nothing to do with money. It's about containment, damage control, and the elimination of a threat. I see, he says quietly. And what exactly are you asking for? 5 million dirhams, Maria states firmly. And a monthly stipend for 2 years while I establish my own business. After that, our connection ends completely. I'll sign any confidentiality agreement you require. That's your final offer? Yes. Khalid nods slowly, as if considering. He rises, walking to the windows to look out at the city he considers his birthright. You've changed, Maria. The woman I fell in love with would never have resorted to this. The man I fell in love with wouldn't have made it necessary. Her voice catches slightly. You're getting married, Khalid. What did you expect me to do? Just disappear quietly? He turns back to her, his expression unreadable. Let me see what's in the cloud storage. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. Maria hesitates, then nods. She opens her laptop on the coffee table, navigating to the secure storage site. I can show you the file list. Khalid moves behind her as she logs in, watching over her shoulder as the screen fills with dozens of files. Videos, photos, audio recordings, all meticulously labeled and dated. The comprehensive nature of her collection becomes clear. This isn't just leverage for a negotiation. It's a detailed archive of their relationship, including potentially damaging material spanning years. You've been planning this for some time, he observes, his voice dangerously soft. Not planning, protecting myself. Maria scrolls through the files, unaware of how the atmosphere in the room has shifted. After I realized you were never going to acknowledge me publicly, I needed security. What happens next occurs with shocking speed. Security camera footage from the building across the street, captured through the penthouse's windows, shows only silhouettes, but the sequence is clear enough. Khalid's hand moves to Maria's throat from behind, yanking her backward off the sofa. Her laptop crashes to the floor. The forensic evidence will later tell the rest of the story. Defensive wounds on Maria's arms show she fought hard. Broken fingernails with Khalid's skin underneath. Toppled lamp. a shattered vase. The path of the struggle moves from the living room toward the bedroom, suggesting she tried to escape, possibly to reach another phone or weapon. The fatal act occurs in the master bedroom. Khalid's superior strength eventually overwhelms her. His hands close around her throat, applying pressure to the carotid arteries rather than the windpipe, a more efficient method of strangulation that suggests either knowledge or instinct. Medical examiner reports will estimate it took between 2 and 4 minutes for Maria to lose consciousness, and another 2 for death to occur. The security footage timeline shows Khalid remains in the penthouse for 2 hours and 25 minutes after Maria's murder. First, he searches for her phone, finding it near the sofa where she dropped it during the initial attack. The device is unlocked, allowing him access to her messages, emails, and cloud storage accounts. He discovers her communications with Jasmine in Singapore, including vague references to the insurance policy, but no specific access details. Next, he returns to the laptop, still open on the floor. The cloud storage site remains logged in. Khalid systematically deletes files, unaware that cloud platforms maintain deletion records and that Maria has already shared access credentials with Jasmine. Khalid's background hasn't prepared him for crime scene management, but instinct guides him. He wipes surfaces he remembers touching. He collects the briefcase with its million dirhams. He straightens the apartment, righting the toppled furniture from the struggle. The final element of his cover-up is the most calculated. Returning to the bedroom, Khalid arranges Maria's body on the bed, positioning her hands at her sides. He places her phone on the nightstand, using her finger to unlock it one last time. He opens a new message draft and types, "I can't live like this anymore." At 11:42 p.m., security cameras capture Khalid exiting the private elevator. His expression is composed, his movements unhurried. He nods to the night security guard, a small gesture that the guard will later recall as unusual, as Sheikh Khalid typically passed without acknowledgement. For 48 hours, Maria Santos lies undisturbed in the penthouse bedroom. 2 scheduled flights pass without her reporting for duty. The second absence triggers Emirates' standard welfare check protocol. On April 17th, Divya Kapoor, Maria's former roommate, uses her emergency contact information to request a wellness check. The building's security accompanies Divya to the 43rd floor. She hasn't answered calls or messages for 2 days. Divya explains as they ride the elevator. It's not like her at all. The discovery of Maria's body triggers an immediate cascade of responses. Building security calls police. Divya calls their Emirates supervisor. Within an hour, the penthouse has transformed from a crime scene to a potential diplomatic incident as the connection to Sheikh Khalid emerges. Detective Saeed Al-Mansouri arrives at 5:40 p.m., already aware of the case's sensitivity. His first observations are methodical, taking in the luxurious apartment that clearly exceeds a flight attendant's salary. This wasn't suicide, the medical examiner states quietly to Saeed. The bruising shows applied pressure from hands larger than her own, and there's skin under her fingernails. She fought back. As the investigation unfolds, another sequence of events begins in Singapore. After 48 hours of unanswered calls, Jasmine Chin follows the contingency plan Maria established. She accesses the shared cloud storage account, finding the files apparently deleted, but recovers them. What she discovers is more comprehensive than she realized. Dozens of recordings documenting Maria's relationship with Khalid. Jasmine contacts the Philippines embassy in Dubai, reporting Maria missing. She backs up all the recovered files, ensuring the evidence remains preserved. Back in the penthouse, Detective Saeed's team discovers that despite efforts to clean the scene, luminol testing reveals blood traces on the living room carpet. More importantly, the building's security system has captured footage of Khalid's arrival and departure on April 15th. "We need to proceed carefully," Saeed tells his team. "This case has complications beyond the ordinary." Detective Saeed Al-Mansouri stands in his sparse office at Dubai Police Headquarters, staring at the evidence board he's constructed for the Maria Santos case. Despite pressure to handle this investigation discreetly, Saeed has insisted on proper procedure: photographs of the crime scene, timeline markers, security footage stills, and autopsy findings all methodically arranged. In his 20 years with Dubai police, he's never faced a case with such political sensitivity. The preliminary autopsy results arrived this morning, confirming what was already obvious at the scene. Death by manual strangulation with defensive wounds indicating a significant struggle. The medical examiner noted bruising patterns consistent with large male hands and found skin samples beneath the victim's fingernails. The staged suicide scenario was amateur at best, an oversight Saeed attributes to privilege rather than stupidity. Men who have never faced consequences rarely consider all contingencies. "Sir, the digital forensics report is ready," announces Detective Fatima Al-Zabi, Saeed's most trusted colleague. At 32, Fatima specializes in technology crimes, her expertise crucial for cases involving Dubai's elite, who increasingly conduct their affairs through encrypted channels. "What did they recover?" Saeed asks, accepting the tablet she hands him. The victim's laptop had been wiped, but not professionally. They've recovered deleted files showing extensive communication with Sheikh Khalid over 3 years. The phone found at the scene was similarly wiped, but backups existed on her cloud account. The digital evidence creates a comprehensive timeline. A 3-year relationship beginning with seemingly genuine affection that gradually transformed into financial dependence. The most damning elements are the recent communications, Khalid's marriage announcement, the negotiation over settlement terms, and Maria's increasingly desperate attempts to secure her future. The building security footage is conclusive. Fatima continues, swiping to a series of time-stamped images. Sheikh Khalid arrived at 9:17 p.m., left at 11:42 p.m. No one else entered or exited the penthouse until the wellness check 2 days later. Saeed nods, unsurprised. And the financial connections? The penthouse is owned by Horizon Investments, a shell corporation that traces back to Al Maktoum Holdings. Monthly transfers of 50,000 dirhams have been sent to Ms. Santos for the past 2 years. The evidence is substantial, but gathering it is only half the challenge. Saeed must now navigate the complex political landscape that surrounds any case involving Dubai's ruling family. The usual procedure, arrest, questioning, formal charges, becomes dangerously complicated when the suspect is a sheikh. "We need to move quickly," Saeed tells Fatima, "before this disappears." Within hours of their meeting, Saeed receives the first interference attempt. A call from Commissioner Abdullah suggesting the case might be better handled by a special unit with experience in sensitive matters. Saeed recognizes the euphemism for what it is, an attempt to bury the investigation. "With respect, sir, this is a straightforward homicide case," Saeed responds. "The evidence is clear, and proper procedure should be followed regardless of the suspect's identity." The commissioner's silence speaks volumes. "There are considerations beyond criminal justice, detective. Justice should be blind to those considerations, sir." The conversation ends without resolution, but Saeed understands he's now racing against institutional forces that could remove him from the case at any moment. He accelerates the investigation, conducting rapid interviews with building staff who remember Sheikh Khalid's regular visits, neighbors who occasionally heard arguments from the penthouse, and Maria's Emirates colleagues who witnessed the dramatic improvement in her financial situation over recent years. Meanwhile, beyond police headquarters, another force begins to mobilize. The Filipino community in Dubai, over 650,000 strong, has begun sharing news of Maria's death. What starts as whispers among flight attendants and hotel staff quickly spreads through churches, community centers, and social media groups. Initially reported as a tragic suicide, the story transforms as details leak from the investigation. The Philippines embassy requests information from Dubai police, initially receiving only confirmation of a Filipino national's death. But as days pass and the community's concern grows, the pressure intensifies. Filipino workers gather for a prayer vigil outside the embassy, holding photographs of Maria in her Emirates uniform. The image, a beautiful young woman in professional attire, smiling confidently, becomes the symbol of a movement gaining momentum. In Cebu, Maria's family receives the devastating news from embassy officials. The shock of her death is compounded by revelations about her life, the relationship with Sheikh Khalid, the luxury penthouse, the extortion attempt. For Lourdes Santos, who spent years working in Saudi Arabia, the story carries painful resonance. "I always feared something like this," she tells local journalists who gather outside their modest home. "The powerful take what they want from people like us." The family's grief transforms into public advocacy. Paulo Santos, Maria's brother, becomes an unexpected spokesman, conducting interviews with Filipino media that spread internationally. "My sister wasn't perfect," he acknowledges, "but she didn't deserve to die for wanting security after giving years of her life to this man." The hashtag Justice for Maria begins trending, first in the Philippines, then globally. International media organizations that typically avoid critical coverage of Gulf states find the story irresistible. A royal sheikh, a beautiful flight attendant, luxury, extortion, and murder. The narrative crosses boundaries of class, nationality, and politics, resonating particularly with migrant worker communities worldwide. As public attention grows, a crucial development occurs in Singapore. Jasmine Chun, increasingly concerned about her friend's fate and dissatisfied with the limited information from Dubai authorities, makes a decision. Working with a Filipino advocacy organization, she releases selected files from Maria's cloud storage. Nothing sexually explicit or deeply personal, but enough to prove the relationship existed and that Khalid had made promises he never intended to keep. The videos show intimate moments in luxury settings. Khalid and Maria discussing future plans, celebrating anniversaries, exchanging expensive gifts. In one particularly damaging clip, Khalid promises to take care of her forever while presenting a diamond bracelet. The contrast between these promises and the brutal reality of Maria's death creates international outrage. The Philippine government, initially cautious about pressuring the UAE given the economic importance of remittances from Filipino workers there, finds itself forced to act. The Foreign Secretary issues formal diplomatic requests for transparency in the investigation and justice for a Filipino citizen. Behind closed doors, more serious discussions occur about potential consequences: reduced worker deployments, travel advisories, international legal actions. 4 days after Maria's body was discovered, Detective Saeed receives an unexpected summons to the office of Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai. Saeed arrives expecting to be removed from the case. Instead, he finds himself in a conversation that will reshape his understanding of power in the Emirate. Detective Al-Mansuri, the ruler, begins, dispensing with formalities. "I understand you're investigating a serious matter involving my nephew." "Yes, Your Highness." "And the evidence points conclusively to his guilt?" Saeed chooses his words carefully. "The evidence is substantial. Without a compelling alternative explanation, it would be difficult to reach any other conclusion." The ruler nods slowly. Dubai's reputation is built on 2 pillars: detective, business, and security. Both require the perception of justice and order. He pauses, looking out at the city skyline. No individual stands above these foundations. The message is clear. In a calculated decision balancing family loyalty against Dubai's international standing, the ruling family has decided that Khalid will face consequences. Not out of moral obligation or justice for Maria, but to preserve the Emirates' carefully cultivated image as a modern, law-abiding state. The arrest occurs without public announcement on April 19th. Sheikh Khalid is taken into custody at his family compound by Saeed personally, accompanied by senior officers. The young sheikh shows no resistance, his face registering shock rather than fear, the reaction of a man encountering boundaries for the first time. "Do you understand why you're being arrested?" Saeed asks as protocol requires. "This is a misunderstanding," Khalid responds, the practiced confidence in his voice undermined by uncertainty. "My family will resolve this matter." "This is already resolved," Saeed replies. "This is justice." Khalid is not placed in standard detention but in a private wing of a security facility, comfortable but isolated. His engagement to Amina is quietly cancelled. His social media presence, already minimal, is systematically erased. Family photographs featuring him are removed from public display. Within days, it becomes apparent that the ruling family's strategy is not just prosecution but erasure, addressing the crime while minimizing the association with their lineage. Behind closed doors, negotiations occur about how the case will proceed. The family's legal representatives work to shape the narrative. The relationship with Maria will be acknowledged, but the extortion element will be emphasized. The killing will be presented as an unfortunate escalation during an argument rather than premeditated murder. Most importantly, the proceedings will occur in a closed courtroom, away from international media scrutiny. Detective Saeed, watching these maneuvers with professional detachment, recognizes the compromise taking shape. Justice will be served, but on terms acceptable to power. Sheikh Khalid will face consequences but be spared public humiliation. Maria will receive posthumous justice, but the system that enabled her exploitation will remain unchallenged. As Saeed prepares the final case file for prosecutors, he reflects on the invisible mechanics of justice in a society stratified by wealth, nationality, and connection. The case represents both progress, a powerful man facing consequences for violence against a vulnerable woman, and limitation, the carefully managed nature of that accountability. For the Filipino community watching anxiously, for Maria's family mourning in Cebu, for migrant workers throughout the Gulf who recognize their own vulnerability in her story, the arrest represents a rare acknowledgement of worth. The life of a foreign worker, a woman from a poor country serving the wealthy, was deemed valuable enough for justice to be pursued. On his final visit to the penthouse, now emptied of evidence and personal belongings, Detective Saeed stands at the same window where Maria and Khalid once looked out at Dubai's skyline. The city continues its relentless growth, new towers rising in the desert heat, built by armies of migrant workers dreaming of better lives for families far away. Justice for one woman won't change the fundamental equation of power and vulnerability that defined Maria's life and death. But perhaps, Saeed reflects, it reminds everyone that even in a society of stark inequalities, some lines cannot be crossed without consequence. September 7, 2023. Dubai Criminal Court, Special Chamber. The courtroom sits empty except for essential personnel. 3 judges in traditional dress, court recorders, minimal security, and representatives from both prosecution and defense. No journalists, no public observers, no family members from either side. The proceeding that would normally attract international attention unfolds in near silence. The only sounds the shuffling of papers and the measured voice of the chief judge reading the charges. Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed Al Maktoum enters wearing a simple white kandura rather than prison attire, a final concession to his status. 5 months in detention have transformed him. The confident royal has been replaced by a thinner, hollow-eyed man who seems to move through the proceedings with detached resignation. The prosecution presents a carefully curated case. The relationship with Maria Santos is acknowledged, a consensual affair that lasted approximately 3 years. The financial support is presented as generosity rather than arrangement. The confrontation leading to her death is described as a personal dispute that escalated to violence. No mention of extortion, video recordings, or blackmail appears in the official record. The evidence itself, security footage, DNA findings, digital communications, speaks clearly enough without these complications. The defense makes minimal effort to contest the facts. Instead, they focus on mitigating factors: Khalid's previously unblemished record, his contributions to Emirati society, his willingness to make financial restitution to the victim's family. There is no mention of mental illness, temporary insanity, or diminished capacity. The strategy is dignified surrender rather than desperate struggle. Detective Saeed Al-Mansuri watches from the back of the courtroom, his official role completed with the submission of evidence. The verdict, when delivered, brings no visible reaction from him. 25 years imprisonment for the murder of Maria Santos. The sentence falls short of the death penalty that might have been applied, but far exceeds the reduced sentences often granted to powerful defendants. It represents a carefully calibrated middle ground, justice tempered by status. As part of the judgment, the court approves a substantial blood money payment to the Santos family, a traditional practice under UAE law that allows for financial compensation to victims' families. The amount, though undisclosed in court records, is later revealed to exceed 5 million dirhams, far more than the sum Maria had requested during her fatal negotiation. This payment comes with its own implicit agreement. Acceptance means closing the matter completely. Outside the courtroom, Saeed encounters Abdul Rahman, the prosecutor who presented the case. Justice was served today, Abdul offers, though his tone suggests ambivalence. A version of justice, Saeed replies. What more did you expect, detective? He's paying with 25 years of his life. The family receives compensation that will transform their circumstances. The system worked. Saeed considers this. The system processed a case it couldn't ignore. That's not the same as working. As they part ways, Saeed reflects on what remains unsaid in the official record. How Maria's desperation grew from a system that treats foreign workers as disposable. How Khalid's expectation of impunity reflected lifetime privilege. How the case progressed not because of commitment to justice, but because international pressure made burying it too costly. Within days of the sentencing, Khalid's family completes his social erasure. His engagement is officially cancelled for personal reasons. His positions within family businesses are reassigned. His apartments, vehicles, and personal effects are quietly dispersed. In the official family genealogy, his name remains but without the usual photographs or biographical details afforded to other members. He becomes a ghost while still living, the punishment beyond imprisonment. Half a world away, a cargo plane lands at Mactancebu International Airport carrying a simple coffin. After months of being held as evidence, Maria Santos returns to the Philippines. The Filipino Overseas Workers Administration has arranged for transportation, coordinating with local authorities to manage what has become a nationally significant event. The funeral procession from airport to Guadalupe Parish stretches for nearly a kilometer, family members in black followed by hundreds of community members, former classmates, neighbors, and strangers moved by Maria's story. Many carry signs, "Justice for Maria," "Protect our OFWs," "Remember her name." Larger political currents flow beneath the personal grief. Frustration with a system that forces Filipinos to seek opportunities abroad. Anger at the vulnerability of workers in countries with troubling human rights records. Determination that Maria's death should catalyze change. At the family home, now renovated thanks to Maria's remittances, Lourdes and Eduardo Santos receive an endless stream of visitors. They sit shell-shocked, caught between grief for their daughter and bewilderment at the revelations about her life. The Maria they knew, studious, responsible, family-oriented, seems difficult to reconcile with the woman who lived in a luxury penthouse, recorded intimate moments as leverage, and died attempting extortion. She was still our Maria, Lourdes insists to relatives who whisper judgments. She did what she thought necessary to help her family. We cannot judge her choices without standing in her place. Eduardo remains quieter, his grief compounded by guilt. She was trying to build my dream, he tells Paulo late one night. That resort I always talked about. She was saving to make it real. The family faces difficult questions about the blood money payment. Traditional Filipino values emphasize forgiveness and closure rather than financial compensation for death. Yet the practical reality, 5 million dirhams can transform the family's circumstances permanently, creates moral complexity. After days of discussion, they reach a decision that Maria might have appreciated. They will accept the payment but use it primarily to help others. 3 months after Maria's funeral, the Maria Santos Foundation is established in Cebu City. Its mission, articulated by Eduardo at the opening ceremony, to create opportunities at home so young Filipinos don't have to leave to support their families. The foundation focuses on 3 areas: education scholarships for young women pursuing hospitality careers, microloans for local business development, and advocacy for stronger protections for overseas Filipino workers. The foundation's first project rises quickly in Barangay Guadalupe, the Maria Santos Community Center, where young people learn English, customer service skills, and financial literacy. Inside, a photograph of Maria in her Emirates uniform hangs in the entrance hall. The image is carefully chosen. Maria standing professionally beside an aircraft door, embodying dignity and aspiration rather than victimhood. In Dubai, the case catalyzes modest but meaningful policy changes. The UAE government, sensitive to international criticism but unwilling to acknowledge systemic issues, implements enhanced protections for domestic workers and service staff. New regulations require employers to provide written contracts, minimum rest periods, and clearer grievance procedures. Airlines operating in the UAE introduce more robust reporting systems for staff facing harassment or inappropriate approaches from passengers. These changes, while insufficient to address the fundamental power imbalances that contributed to Maria's death, represent incremental progress. For Detective Saeed Al-Mansouri, the case marks a turning point. Though officially commended for his thorough investigation, he recognizes the political limitations placed on his work. 6 months after Khalid's sentencing, Saeed submits his resignation from Dubai police, accepting a position with an international security consultancy. The decision costs him standing in Emirati society but grants him freedom from constraints he can no longer accept. Some cases show you that the tallest towers in the world can still have the darkest shadows. He explains when colleagues ask why he's leaving. "I'd rather work in the light." 2 years after Maria's death, the narrative surrounding her has evolved into something more complex than simple victimhood. In the Philippines, she represents both tragedy and aspiration. A woman who crossed boundaries of class and nationality through determination, whose death exposed the vulnerabilities faced by millions of overseas workers. In UAE expatriate communities, her story serves as both cautionary tale and rallying point for improved protections. On the anniversary of her death, the Filipino community in Dubai holds a memorial service that the authorities permit with reluctance. Hundreds gather at St. Mary's Catholic Church, many wearing Emirates uniform colors in solidarity. They speak of Maria not as a woman who overreached or made fatal mistakes, but as someone whose ambition and determination reflected their own dreams. In Cebu, the resort that Eduardo and Lourdes once imagined finally takes shape, a small but beautiful property on Mactan Island named Santos Haven. With 10 rooms, a restaurant serving Lola Conchita's recipes, and diving excursions for tourists, it employs 15 local staff, including Paolo as manager and Elijah as dive instructor. The family lives on the property, finally united after decades of separation caused by economic necessity. Maria made this possible. Eduardo tells visitors who ask about the resort's history, not the way any of us would have chosen, but she kept her promise to build something that would last. The true legacy of Maria Santos exists in these contradictions. A woman whose choices were both liberated and constrained, whose relationship was both genuine and transactional, whose death was both tragedy and catalyst. For the thousands of Filipino workers who continue to leave their country, seeking opportunities abroad, her story resonates with uncomfortable familiarity. The circumstances may be extraordinary, but the fundamental dynamics, vulnerability, exploitation, and the desperate calculations made when supporting a family from afar remain daily realities. In Dubai, life continues its relentless pace. New skyscrapers rise, new luxury developments emerge from the desert, new services cater to the wealthy. The workers who build and maintain this gleaming city, the construction laborers, housekeepers, nannies, drivers, and service staff, continue arriving from the Philippines, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and dozens of other nations. They send money home, live in crowded accommodations, build lives in the margins of luxury, and dream of eventual return. Sheikh Khalid serves his sentence in a special facility, separated from ordinary prisoners. His name fades from public consciousness, his story becoming a whispered cautionary tale within elite circles rather than a public reckoning with power. The system that created both him and Maria remains fundamentally unchanged, processing this particular failure without addressing its structural causes. Perhaps the most honest memorial to Maria exists neither in Cebu nor Dubai, but in the countless conversations among vulnerable workers throughout the Gulf states. In dormitories and staff canteens, in church gatherings and community meetings, they share her story as both warning and assertion of worth. The message evolves beyond the specifics of extortion and murder to something more fundamental, that even in systems designed to make them invisible, their lives matter. Their deaths will not pass unnoticed. Their stories deserve to be told.